Mom's text arrived at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is off limits. Rachel's future mother-in-law is chief of medicine at Presbyterian. You'd embarrass her. I stared at my phone for a long moment, standing in the research lab at Columbia Medical Center where I'd just finished examining tissue samples under an electron microscope. Around me, my team of 12 researchers worked quietly, analyzing data from our latest clinical trial. The breakthrough we'd achieved in regenerative cardiology was going to change how we treated heart disease. The New England Journal of Medicine had fast-tracked our paper for publication in their January issue. I typed back a single word, okay. My phone buzzed immediately. Rachel, my older sister. Thank God you're being reasonable for once. Dr. Catherine Morrison is a huge deal. She runs the entire cardiac department at Presbyterian. David's mother. I can't have you there asking stupid questions about medicine or whatever. I looked at the framed degree on my lab wall. Doctor of Medicine from Johns Hopkins. PhD in Molecular Biology from Stanford. Board certification in cardiology. 7 years of residency and fellowship. 14 published papers in peer-reviewed journals. I understand, I replied. David and I are getting engaged at Thanksgiving. His mother is making the announcement. This is my moment, Sarah. I need everything perfect. Congratulations. Just stay home. Watch football or something. Mom and Dad agree it's better this way. I set my phone down and returned to my microscope. Through the lens, I could see the cardiac cells we'd regenerated using our novel stem cell protocol. Cells that shouldn't exist, growing in petri dishes because my team had figured out what everyone said was impossible. My research assistant, Kevin, approached with a tablet. Dr. Chin, the conference organizers confirmed your presentation slot. November 26, 2 p.m. Grand Ballroom. They're expecting over 2,000 attendees. The American College of Cardiology's annual research symposium. The most prestigious gathering in our field. I'd been invited to present our breakthrough findings on cardiac tissue regeneration. The keynote speaker was listed as Dr. Catherine Morrison, Chief of Cardiac Medicine at Presbyterian Hospital, presenting on the future of interventional cardiology. Thank you, Kevin, I said quietly. Make sure the presentation slides include the latest data from the Phase 2 trial results. Already done. Dr. Morrison's team actually cited your work in their recent paper on minimally invasive procedures. I saw that. Have you met her? Not yet. I hadn't mentioned that Dr. Catherine Morrison was about to become my sister's mother-in-law. Or that my family had no idea I was a doctor, let alone a researcher whose work was reshaping cardiac medicine. They'd stopped asking about my life years ago. My relationship with my family had always been defined by a simple hierarchy. Rachel was the golden child and I was the complicated one. Rachel had followed the expected path. Pretty, popular college degree in communications, job in pharmaceutical sales that paid well and required minimal expertise. At 31, she dated a succession of appropriate men with good jobs and better connections. David Morrison was her crowning achievement. 34, investment banker at Goldman Sachs, $800,000 annual salary, family legacy at Princeton. His mother ran cardiac medicine at one of the nation's top hospitals. His father was a senior partner at a white shoe law firm. The Morrison name opened doors across Manhattan's elite circles. I'd taken a different route. At 18, I'd been accepted to Johns Hopkins for pre-med with a full scholarship. Medical school? Mom had said, her voice uncertain. That's so many years, Sarah. What if you want to get married? I'd gone anyway. 4 years of medical school, 3 years of internal medicine residency, 4 years of cardiology fellowship, all while publishing research that caught the attention of the National Institutes of Health. At 33, I was an attending physician and director of regenerative cardiac research at Columbia Medical Center, leading a team that had just completed a clinical trial showing we could regenerate damaged heart tissue using modified stem cells. My parents had attended none of it. Not my medical school graduation. Not my residency completion. Not the awards ceremony where I'd received the Young Investigator Award from the American Heart Association. We saw the announcement in the alumni magazine, Dad had said once. Very impressive, dear. Though we weren't quite sure what it all meant. Rachel had been more direct. You're a doctor? Like a real doctor? She'd sounded almost offended. When did this happen? 7 years ago when I finished residency. And you never mentioned it? I'd mentioned it dozens of times. They'd never absorbed the information, too focused on Rachel's latest boyfriend or her promotion to senior sales representative. 3 years ago, I'd bought a brownstone in the Upper West Side for $4.2 million. Cash from my NIH grants, speaking fees and consulting work. I'd mentioned it at Christmas dinner. That's nice, dear, Mom had said. Rachel, tell us more about the condo David is looking at in Tribeca. I'd stopped sharing after that. My practice at Columbia generated a comfortable income. $450,000 in clinical salary plus research funding and consulting fees that pushed my annual earnings over $700,000. But the money wasn't the point. The point was the work. The research. The patients whose lives changed because my team had figured out how to regenerate cardiac tissue that every textbook said couldn't regenerate. Last month, a 63-year-old man with severe heart failure had walked out of the hospital after our experimental treatment. His ejection fraction had improved from 22% to 48%. He could climb stairs again. Play with his grandchildren. Life. That same week, Rachel had called to tell me about the engagement ring David was designing. 3 carats, Sarah. Flawless. His mother knows the jeweler personally. That's wonderful, I'd said, reviewing clinical data while she talked. His mother is so impressive. She runs the entire cardiac department at Presbyterian. Do you even understand how prestigious that is? I'd looked at the email from Dr. Morrison's office on my screen, requesting to cite my research in her upcoming keynote presentation at the ACC symposium. I can imagine, I'd said. The weeks before Thanksgiving passed in a blur of research and clinical work. My team finalized data analysis for our New England Journal paper. I saw patients in my clinic, post-surgical follow-ups, second opinions, complex cases referred from other cardiologists. I prepared my presentation for the ACC symposium, condensing 3 years of breakthrough research into a 20-minute talk. My mother called once. Just confirming you're not coming to Thanksgiving. I'll be working. On Thanksgiving? Medical research doesn't stop for holidays, Mom. Well, it's probably better anyway. Catherine Morrison is very sophisticated. She summered in the Hamptons, winters in Aspen. I'm not sure you'd have much to talk about. I almost laughed. Dr. Catherine Morrison and I had plenty to talk about. Cardiac tissue regeneration protocols, stem cell differentiation mechanisms, clinical trial design, the future of regenerative medicine. We'd been corresponding via email for 6 months, ever since she'd read my preliminary findings in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. I'm sure you're right, I said. Rachel called the next day. David's mother wants to meet the whole family at Thanksgiving. She's very particular about who David associates with. Family connections matter to her. I'm sure they do. So you understand why we can't have you there. No offense, Sarah, but you're not really impressive in that world, you know? You work at a hospital or something, right? Something like that. Right. Well, Catherine needs to see that David is marrying into a quality family. Dad's company, Mom's volunteer work, our social connections. You'd raise questions we don't want to answer. Understood. Thanks for being cool about this. I knew you'd understand. She hung up. I looked at the plaque on my wall. Distinguished Investigator Award, National Institutes of Health 2023. In recognition of groundbreaking contributions to cardiac regenerative medicine. November 26th arrived cold and clear. The ACC symposium was being held at the New York Hilton Midtown, 18 blocks from my brownstone. I dressed carefully that morning. Navy blue suit from Theory, cream silk blouse, Manolo Blahnik heels. Professional, polished, authoritative. My dark hair pulled back in a French twist. The jade earrings my grandmother had given me before she died. I'd been wearing these earrings the day she told me, "Don't let anyone make you small, Sarah. Especially not family." The symposium started at 8 a.m. I arrived early, picking up my presenter credentials and reviewing the schedule. Dr. Morrison's keynote was at 10 a.m. My presentation was at 2 p.m. The organizers had placed me in the grand ballroom, the same venue as the keynote, an honor reserved for the most significant presentations. At 9:30 I settled into a seat in the front row of the grand ballroom. Around me, cardiologists from across the country filled the seats. Department chairs, researchers, clinical directors. The energy was electric. Dr. Morrison's keynotes were legendary in our field. My phone buzzed. Wait. Having the best Thanksgiving prep day. Catherine took me to her club for lunch. So elegant. She's wearing Chanel. Mom is dying of jealousy. I silenced my phone. At precisely 10 a.m. the lights dimmed. Dr. Harold Chin, president of the American College of Cardiology, took the podium. It is my distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Dr. Catherine Morrison has been at the forefront of interventional cardiology for 2 decades. As Chief of Cardiac Medicine at Presbyterian Hospital, she oversees a department of 83 physicians and has pioneered numerous techniques in minimally invasive cardiac procedures. Please welcome Dr. Catherine Morrison. The audience erupted in applause. I joined them, watching as a tall woman in her late 50s walked onto the stage. Silver hair cut in a precise bob, black suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, presence that commanded immediate attention. She looked exactly like her professional photos, but more formidable in person. Thank you, Dr. Morrison said, her voice clear and confident. Today I want to discuss the future of cardiac medicine, particularly the extraordinary developments in regenerative cardiology that are transforming how we approach heart disease. She clicked to her first slide, a diagram of cardiac tissue structure. For decades we believed damaged cardiac tissue was permanent. A heart attack destroyed cells, left scars, reduced function forever. We managed symptoms, but we couldn't heal the underlying damage. She paused. That belief was wrong. Next slide. A microscopic image of regenerated cardiac cells. My cells. From my research. Over the past 3 years, breakthrough research has demonstrated that we can, in fact, regenerate functional cardiac tissue. The implications are staggering. She looked directly at the audience. I'm honored to present this groundbreaking work today, research conducted by one of the brightest minds in our field. My heart rate increased slightly. Dr. Sarah Chin, attending physician and director of regenerative cardiac research at Columbia Medical Center, has developed a novel protocol using modified stem cells to regenerate damaged myocardium. Her Phase 2 clinical trial results, published last month in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, show a 43% improvement in ejection fraction among patients with severe heart failure. She clicked to the next slide. My published data, my graphs, my name prominently displayed. 43% improvement. In patients who had exhausted all other options. Patients we would have listed for transplant or sent home to die. Dr. Chen's work is quite literally saving lives. The audience murmured, impressed. I sat very still. I've had the privilege of corresponding with Dr. Chin over the past 6 months, reviewing her protocols, discussing her methodology. Her rigor is exceptional. Her vision is transformative. Dr. Morrison smiled. I'm pleased to announce that Presbyterian Hospital will be collaborating with Columbia Medical Center to expand this research, with Dr. Chin leading a multi-center trial across 6 hospitals. More applause. Several people in the audience turned to look around, trying to identify me. But I don't want to steal her thunder. Dr. Chin will be presenting her full findings this afternoon at 2 p.m. in this very ballroom. I strongly encourage everyone to attend. It will be the most important presentation you hear this year. She paused, scanning the front row. In fact, I believe Dr. Chin is here now. Sarah, would you stand? Every eye in the room turned toward the front row. I stood slowly, turning to face the audience. 2,000 cardiologists looked back at me. There she is, Dr. Morrison said warmly. The future of cardiac medicine. Give her the recognition she deserves. The applause was thunderous. I nodded once, then sat back down, my face carefully composed despite my racing heart. Dr. Morrison continued her keynote, spending the next 40 minutes discussing her own work in interventional procedures and how it would integrate with regenerative approaches. She cited my research 6 more times, each citation more effusive than the last. When the keynote ended, I was immediately surrounded by colleagues wanting to discuss my findings. Department chairs from Johns Hopkins, Stanford, Mayo Clinic. Researchers from NIH, pharmaceutical executives interested in clinical applications. I spent 30 minutes answering questions, exchanging cards, scheduling follow-up discussions. Finally, I extracted myself and headed toward the exit, needing coffee before my own presentation. Dr. Chin. I turned. Dr. Catherine Morrison stood behind me, smiling warmly. I wanted to introduce myself properly, she said, extending her hand. Catherine Morrison. I'm a huge admirer of your work. I shook her hand. The admiration is mutual, Dr. Morrison. Your minimally invasive protocols are brilliant. Please call me Catherine. She gestured toward the hallway. Walk with me. I'd love to discuss the collaboration in more detail. We walked together toward the conference coffee lounge, discussing research protocols, trial design, patient selection criteria. She was sharp, incisive, pushing me on methodology in ways that made me refine my thinking. This was a woman who had climbed to the top of a male-dominated field through sheer excellence. Your trial results are even more impressive than the published data suggested, Catherine said. The patient outcomes in your supplementary materials. Remarkable. Thank you. We're still optimizing the protocol, but the core approach is sound. How long have you been at Columbia? 7 years. 3 in fellowship, 4 as attending. Hopkins for medical school? Yes. Stanford for my PhD. She smiled. Impressive credentials. Though clearly the work speaks louder than the degrees. She paused as we reached the coffee station. Are you presenting alone this afternoon, or will your team be joining you? Alone. Though my research team deserves equal credit. Spoken like a true leader. He checked her watch. I have a lunch meeting with the hospital board, but I'll be back for your presentation. Wouldn't miss it. We shook hands again and she left. I poured coffee and found a quiet corner to review my presentation slides one final time. My phone had 17 missed calls. All from my family. I didn't check the voicemails. At 1:45 p.m. I returned to the grand ballroom. It was packed. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls. Word had spread about the keynote's emphasis on my research. This was the audience that would determine whether my work was accepted as legitimate breakthrough science or dismissed as preliminary findings needing further validation. At 1:55 p.m., Dr. Harold Chen found me backstage. Dr. Chen, we've had to open the overflow rooms. We're expecting over 3,000 attendees for your presentation. It's unprecedented for a research talk. No pressure, I said, allowing myself a small smile. Catherine Morrison singing your praises helped. But your data stands on its own merit. Good luck. At 2 p.m. precisely, I walked onto the stage. The applause was immediate and sustained. I stood at the podium, looking out at 3,000 of the world's leading cardiologists. Somewhere in that audience was Catherine Morrison, future mother-in-law to my sister, who had no idea I was a doctor. Thank you, I said, waiting for silence. I'm Dr. Sarah Chin, and I'm here to discuss how we've solved a problem that's challenged cardiac medicine for a century: how to regenerate damaged heart tissue. I clicked to my first slide. For the next 20 minutes, I presented our breakthrough: the modified stem cell protocol, the differentiation mechanisms we'd discovered, the clinical trial showing 43% improvement in cardiac function, the patients who could breathe again, walk again, live again. The audience was rapt. No one checked their phones. No one whispered to colleagues. They were watching the future of their field unfold in real time. When I finished, the applause lasted 2 full minutes. Then came the questions, technical, probing, excited. I answered each one precisely, my years of research allowing me to address even the most complex challenges to our methodology. Finally, Dr. Harold Chen stood. I think I speak for everyone when I say this is the most significant advancement in cardiac medicine we've seen in decades. Dr. Chen, thank you for this extraordinary work. More applause. As I left the stage, Catherine Morrison was waiting. Brilliant, she said simply. Absolutely brilliant. I want to schedule a meeting next week to discuss the multi-center trial in detail. Can you come to Presbyterian? Of course. Wonderful. My assistant will coordinate with yours. She smiled. I'm hosting Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow at my home in Westchester. Small gathering, just family and a few close colleagues. I'd love to have you join us. We could continue the discussion in a more relaxed setting. I'd been expecting something, but not this. That's very generous, I said carefully. Are you sure? I wouldn't want to intrude on a family holiday. Nonsense. My son David is getting engaged tomorrow. He's marrying a lovely young woman named Rachel Anderson. Her family will be there, of course. But I always invite a few colleagues to these gatherings. The conversation is better. She touched my arm lightly. Please come. I insist. 6 p.m. I'll text you the address. Rachel Anderson. My sister. I'll be there, I heard myself say. Catherine smiled. Excellent. Fair warning. Rachel's family is lovely but not particularly medically inclined. You might need to explain what you do in simpler terms. I'm used to that. She left to catch her train back to Westchester. I stood in the empty ballroom processing what had just happened. My phone buzzed. 23 missed calls now. 12 voicemails. 47 text messages. I opened my sister's texts first. Where are you? Said you're not coming to Thanksgiving. Catherine keeps asking about David's future family. She wants to know if he has cousins who are accomplished. We're telling her you live in California and couldn't make it. Do not show up tomorrow. I'm serious, Sarah. I looked at the last message sent 15 minutes ago. Catherine just called. She invited someone to Thanksgiving. Some doctor she met at a conference. This is MY Day and she's bringing a colleague? I'm so pissed. I silenced my phone and gathered my materials. Thanksgiving Day I dressed with care. Burgundy dress from Armani, simple but elegant. Black heels. Hair down, professional makeup. The jade earrings. I arrived at Catherine Morrison's estate in Westchester at exactly 6 p.m. The house was stunning. A sprawling colonial on 5 acres, warm light spilling from every window. Cars lined the circular driveway. A Mercedes, a BMW, a Lexus and, I noted with grim amusement, my father's 10-year-old Camry, looking out of place among the luxury vehicles. The front door opened before I could knock. A housekeeper in formal attire smiled. Dr. Chin? Dr. Morrison is expecting you. May I take your coat? I handed over my cashmere coat and followed her inside. The home was beautifully appointed. Antique furniture, original artwork, the kind of understated wealth that comes from old money and good taste. Voices drifted from the living room, along with the sound of champagne glasses clinking. Catherine appeared in the hallway wearing an elegant cream pantsuit. Sarah. So glad you could make it. She took my arm warmly. Come meet everyone. Fair warning, the conversation has been a bit surface level so far. You'll be a breath of fresh air. We entered a large living room where about 15 people mingled with cocktails. I saw my family immediately. Mom and Dad stood near the fireplace, looking simultaneously thrilled to be in this home and terrified of saying the wrong thing. Mom wore a department store dress she'd probably bought specifically for this occasion, fingering her champagne flute nervously. Rachel stood across the room in a tight red dress, her arm through David's. David Morrison looked exactly like his photos. Tall, handsome in a generic way, wearing confidence like an expensive watch. He was in mid-story making several guests laugh. None of them had seen me yet. Everyone, Catherine announced, her voice cutting through the chatter. I'd like to introduce a very special guest. This is Dr. Sarah Chin, attending physician and director of regenerative cardiac research at Columbia Medical Center. The room turned toward us. I watched my family's faces in sequence. Dad first, confusion, then recognition, then something like shock. Mom, eyes widening, champagne glass frozen halfway to her lips. Rachel, her face going through a remarkable transformation. Confusion. Recognition. Disbelief. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers. It shattered on Catherine's hardwood floor, crystal fragments and golden liquid spreading across the wood. The room went silent. Oh my God, Rachel whispered. I'm so sorry, she said louder, looking at Catherine, her voice high and panicked. I'm so sorry, I'll clean it up, I don't know what happened. It's fine, Catherine said smoothly, gesturing to the housekeeper. Accidents happen. Sarah, let me get you a drink. What would you like? White wine, thank you. As Catherine guided me toward the bar, I heard my mother's sharp whisper, what is she doing here? And my father's urgent response, how is she a doctor? David approached us at the bar, extending his hand with practiced charm. Dr. Chin, I'm David Morrison. My mother has been raving about your research all day. I shook his hand. Nice to meet you, David. I have to admit, I don't usually understand half of what my mother discusses about medicine. But even I could tell your presentation was something special. She showed me the video. 43% improvement in cardiac function? That's incredible. Thank you. David, Rachel appeared at his elbow, her face still pale, her smile brittle. This is my sister. David's expression went blank. Your sister? Sarah. My younger sister. From California. Rachel's voice was desperate, trying to maintain the lie even as it crumbled around her. Sarah doesn't live in California, my mother said, appearing behind them. She lives in New York. We thought. She trailed off, unable to articulate what they'd thought. Catherine looked between us, understanding dawning. Sarah's your sister? Rachel, you never mentioned your sister was a physician. I didn't, she never. Rachel floundered. She never told you? Catherine's voice was carefully neutral, but her eyes were sharp, reassessing. We haven't been particularly close, I said quietly, sparing Rachel the complete humiliation. My fault. I've been focused on my research. It was a lie. A kindness I wasn't sure Rachel deserved but gave anyway. Catherine studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. Well, this is a lovely surprise. David, you never mentioned your fiancé's sister was in medicine. I didn't know, David said, looking at Rachel with something between confusion and irritation. Rachel said her sister worked in California doing something with hospitals? I work at a hospital, I confirmed. Columbia Medical Center. As a director, Catherine added. And an attending physician. And a published researcher who's revolutionizing cardiac medicine. He turned to my parents. You must be so proud. My father opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. We are. Very proud. Sarah is so modest she never really explained the full scope of her work. Another lie. But one that preserved their dignity, so I let it stand. Dinner was announced, mercifully cutting through the awkward tension. Catherine had arranged a formal dining room with place cards. I found myself seated between Catherine and a researcher from Mount Sinai, far from my family. Rachel was at the opposite end next to David, looking like she might be sick. Throughout dinner, Catherine and I discussed research. The Mount Sinai researcher joined in, then a cardiologist from Yale sitting across from us. The conversation was technical, detailed, engaging. Catherine's questions were incisive, pushing me to refine my thinking about next phase trial design. At the other end of the table, I could see my mother straining to follow the conversation, my father nodding along to discussions he clearly didn't understand. Rachel sat silent, pushing food around her plate. During dessert, Catherine stood with her champagne glass. I'd like to make a toast, she announced. To David and Rachel, who are making their engagement official tonight. Applause around the table. David stood, pulling a small box from his pocket. Rachel's smile was forced as he opened it to reveal a stunning ring. 3 carats, flawless, exactly as she described it to me weeks ago. Rachel Anderson, will you marry me? Yes, she said, her voice barely audible. More applause. David slipped the ring onto her finger. They kissed briefly. Catherine beamed, genuinely happy for her son. To David and Rachel, Catherine said, raising her glass. And to family. May we always recognize and celebrate the extraordinary people in our lives, especially those closest to us. She looked directly at my parents as she said it. We drank the toast. Rachel's hand trembled as she raised her glass. After dinner, as guests mingled over coffee and cognac, my mother cornered me in the hallway leading to the bathroom. Why didn't you tell us? She hissed, her composure finally cracking. I did tell you, Mom. Multiple times. You said you worked at a hospital. You never said you were some famous researcher. I'm not famous. I'm a doctor doing my job. Catherine Morrison thinks you're brilliant. Do you know how that makes us look? We told her you lived in California. We said you weren't close to the family. And then you show up as her special guest and everyone finds out you're some kind of medical genius. I'm not a genius. I'm a physician who works hard. And we look like fools who don't even know our own daughter's accomplishments. Her voice rose. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? For you? Or for me? He stopped, caught off guard. I've been a doctor for 7 years, Mom. I've sent you every publication, every award announcement, every career milestone. You never responded. You never asked. You never came to a single event. I kept my voice quiet, controlled. Tonight is humiliating for you because you're discovering in front of strangers that you don't know your own daughter. That's not my fault. We thought you were just working at a hospital, like an administrator or something. Why would you think that? Because you never made it sound important. Or because nothing I did could ever be as important as Rachel marrying someone with the right last name? She flinched. Rachel appeared at the end of the hallway. Mom, Catherine wants a family photo with David and me. Mom straightened her dress, her social mask sliding back into place. Of course, darling. She walked away without another word to me. Rachel lingered for a moment. You did this on purpose, she said quietly. Did what? Showed up tonight. Made me look like an idiot in front of David's mother. I was invited. I accepted. I didn't even know you'd be here until Catherine mentioned it. Bullshit. You knew exactly what you were doing. Rachel, I have spent 7 years building a career while you planned charity luncheons and dated investment bankers. I didn't do any of it to embarrass you. I did it because I wanted to save lives. I met her eyes. If you feel embarrassed, that's about your own insecurity, not my success. Her face flushed red. David's mother thinks I lied to him about you. You did lie to him about me. Because I didn't know. You never told us you were some big deal doctor. I told you I was a doctor. You never asked what kind or where I worked or what I did. You weren't interested. Why should I have to ask? Normal people just tell their families important things. I tried. For years. You weren't listening. She stared at me for a long moment, tears threatening. This was supposed to be my night. My engagement. My moment. It still is. Catherine is waiting for a photo with you. You ruined it. No, Rachel. I just showed up. The rest was already there. She left, her heels clicking sharply against the hardwood. I stood alone in the hallway for a moment, then returned to the living room. The evening wound down around 10 p.m. Guests began making their departures. I found my coat and was saying goodbye to Catherine when David approached with Rachel beside him. Dr. Chin, he said formally. I wanted to apologize. I should have made more effort to know Rachel's family before tonight. That's between you and Rachel, I said evenly. Still, my mother speaks very highly of you. Your research sounds groundbreaking. Thank you. Rachel stood silent, the massive engagement ring glittering on her finger. I hope we'll see more of you, David continued. Family events, holidays. You're always welcome. I glanced at Rachel's frozen expression. That's kind of you. Catherine appeared, touching my arm warmly. Let me walk you out, Sarah. At my car, Catherine paused. I need to apologize, she said quietly. I had no idea there was complexity with your family situation. It's not your fault. Still, I put you in an awkward position by inviting you. She studied me in the dim light from the house. Can I ask you something directly? Of course. Your family. They genuinely didn't know about your work. They knew I was a doctor. They didn't know the details. Because they never asked? I was quiet for a moment. Because success looks different to them than it does to me. Catherine nodded slowly. I've spent my career watching talented women be underestimated, especially by people who should know better. She squeezed my arm gently. Your research is going to save lives, Sarah. Thousands of lives. That matters more than any family drama. Thank you. And for what it's worth, David needs to understand the family he's marrying into. Tonight showed him that. Better to learn now than after the wedding. I managed a small smile. Always the pragmatist. Always. He stepped back. I'll have my assistant set up that meeting for next week. Presbyterian, Tuesday at 2. I'll be there. I drove home through quiet Westchester streets, then the highway back to Manhattan. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from my mother, my father, my sister, all demanding explanations, apologies, understanding I didn't owe them. I silenced them all. At home in my brownstone, I changed into comfortable clothes and poured a glass of wine. The city glittered outside my windows, millions of lives intersecting in the darkness. Somewhere out there, patients with failing hearts were sleeping, unaware that my research might save their lives someday. That mattered more than anything that had happened tonight. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer. But it was Kevin, my research assistant. Dr. Chin, sorry to call so late. But the New England Journal just posted our paper online ahead of print. It's already got 200 citations and the media is picking it up. NPR wants an interview tomorrow. I pulled up the journal website on my laptop. There it was. Regeneration of functional cardiac tissue using modified stem cell protocol. Results from a Phase 2 clinical trial. Sarachin MD PhD et al. The work that mattered. The work that would outlast family drama and hurt feelings in broken champagne glasses. Schedule the interview, I said. And Kevin, thank you for everything. Are you kidding? This is the biggest moment in cardiac research in decades. We should be thanking you. After we hung up, I sat at my window for a long time watching the city breathe. My phone buzzed one final time. Wait, I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved better from us. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Thank you. I hope you and David are very happy together. I meant it. Despite everything, I meant it. But I didn't offer anything more. No promises of family dinners. No assurances that everything was forgiven. Some distances took more than one apology to bridge. Maybe someday. On my terms. For now, I had research to finish, patients to treat, lives to save. That was enough.